What's up, class? Welcome to Mr. Boyette's ABE math video. Today we're going to be looking at Unit 4, which was ratios, proportions, and percents. So you guys took this test hopefully this week, and I got some of your tests back, and I noticed that a few of you had issues with these things. So let's go ahead and get right to it, and let's go over proportions and ratios first. So when you're doing proportions, and I'll give you a few examples, but when you're doing proportions, you need to set it up correctly, and you need to use the algebraic method in order to solve it. So what do I mean by the algebraic method? So I just mean that it's an algebraic method of solving proportions, okay? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna give you an example. So let's say that we have 3 over x equals, let's just say 4 over 12. All right, and we're trying to find out the value of x. So there's a couple ways to do this, but the easiest way to do this is by cross multiplication. So we're gonna take the top left, multiply it by the bottom right, and we're going to get 36. That's going to equal, and on the other side, we're going to multiply 4 times x. So whenever you multiply a number by a variable, you're just going to put those together just like this, 4x. Okay, now this is a very important skill when you guys get to algebra and you start doing algebra, because a lot of the time in algebraic problems, you're going to see this, a number next to a letter. And all that means is that although we don't know the letter yet, whatever the letter is being multiplied by that number. Just that simple. So when you see a number and a letter right next to each other like that, that symbolizes multiplication. Okay, now once we're here, we need to get x by itself to solve. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna simply divide, because remember, division's the opposite of multiplication. So to get rid of this, we need to do the opposite of it, okay? So we're gonna divide by 4, division, divide by 4, divide by 4, and we're gonna get x equals 9, okay? And that's it. That's how we're gonna solve those proportions. So cross multiply, and then divide by the number diagonal to the x. So whatever number is diagonal to the x is what you're gonna divide the result of the other side by. Okay, now I do have a video explaining this on my website as well. You can refer to that if you have any more questions, or you could just send me an email, okay, and I'll be able to answer your questions. When you ask me questions about certain things, be sure to include an example problem. Just snap a quick picture of the example that you worked on, and that way I can go ahead and show you where you went wrong and like what you can do to improve that, okay? Okay. Now, next, let's talk about ratios. So what I noticed on the test that you guys were getting wrong about ratios is the order. So the order is always whatever comes first in the question they're asking you. So let's say they say, let's say they give you all the information in the first part of the word problem. That's not what I'm talking about, actually. I'm talking about the last sentence with the question mark at the end of it. The last sentence with the question mark at the end of it is where you want to actually look at the order. So if they say, you know, what is the ratio of yellow jelly beans to red jelly beans, yellow's gonna go first because that was the first thing that they told you in the last sentence, okay? So that would be, in that case, what did I say, 4 yellow to 3 red, or whatever it was? Yeah, the yellow would be on top and the red would be on bottom, okay? Alrighty, so that's ratios. Now let's talk a little bit about base rate and part, because some of you were getting confused on that as well. So base rate and part is fairly easy if you use this formula. So there's a couple different ways to do this. There's 3 formulas, and I'll write them here. There's basically base times rate equals part. There's part divided by base equals rate, and there's part divided by rate equals base. Okay, Now, as you can tell, this can be take a little time to memorize. Now, you either have to take the time, take the 30 minutes or whatever it is to memorize these formulas, or you can use this triangle. Okay? In this triangle, part goes on top, base goes on the left, and rate goes on the right. You put a multiplication sign in between base and rate, and you put 2 division signs between part and base and part and rate. Okay? And basically what you're gonna do is once you identify the part, the base, and the rate in the problem, you're gonna plug them into this triangle and just use whatever equation it tells you. Okay? So that's the other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, because sometimes we get confused with, well, I know what the rate is because it's a percent, but what's the base and what's the part, and how can I tell them different? So how you can tell them apart is that base is always after the word of. So I want you to go ahead and write this down. Base is always, I'm just going to put here, after of. Put that in quotes, okay? After the word of. Now what this means is that it's out of that. So when you're talking about something out of something, whatever it's out of is going to be your base, okay? So out of 60, 60 is your base, okay? Part is not going to have of, and it's not going to have a percent. So part is alone. So it's always going to be out on its own, isolated. It's not going to have the word of before it or the percent sign after it. So part, we just put is alone. It has no identifier words with it, okay? So base is your total and part is the piece of that total. It does not matter how big or small these numbers are. The part can actually be bigger than the base. The base can actually be bigger than the, can be smaller than the part or bigger. It doesn't matter, okay? The amounts are irrelevant. What is relevant is the identifying words. So the word of, whether it's alone, or if it's a rate, it's gonna have a percent sign after it, okay? And I'll just put that here, rate is gonna have the percent sign after it, or it's gonna have the word percent. Okay, so that's for base, rate, and part. Again, I know this is getting repetitive, but I do have a video on this that shows you how to do the equations and identify what they are. And I'm gonna actually go ahead and show you right now. I'll do it on the left side. I'm just gonna give you an example problem and just show you how you would go about identifying these things, okay? So let's say they have a problem that says 32 is 40% of what? All right, so this is a common question here. So 32 is 40% of what? So 40% is going to be our rate because it has the percent sign after it. So you just have to underline that number and put rate under it. Okay, now the 32. So this is where some of you might get confused. You might say, oh, well, how do I know whether this is a base or a part? Okay, ask yourself this. Do you see the word of before it? Do you see a percent sign after it? No, right? It's alone, so it's your part. And then you're just gonna plug these numbers into the formula. You may use a calculator to solve. 32 goes into this P right here, or any of these three formulas. It could go, okay, so you have rate and part, so it'd be this last one here. So 32 divided by rate, which is 40%. Again, you could convert this into a decimal if you needed to plug it into a calculator, and you'd get your answer, okay? Now, when you're solving for rate, this formula right here, so whenever you're solving for rate, be sure to convert that number that you get back into a percentage, okay? Because a rate is always in the form of a percent. All right, so that's it for that section. Again, email me if you have any specific questions on problems. For example, if you ran into a problem in the homework that you didn't understand, go ahead and take a picture of it, send it to me. I can solve it and just show you how to do it, okay? All right, lastly, conversions. So most of you guys got all the conversions correct. The only thing that you guys were getting wrong was the fractions part. So you were getting confused on how you would convert fractions to decimals and fractions to percents and stuff like that. and decimals to fractions as well. So the easiest way to do this, so if you're going to convert a fraction into a decimal or a percent, you have to divide it. Use your calculator. The top number is going to go in first into the calculator, and the bottom number is going to go in second. So it's kind of like this. So I'm going to write it under here. If you have 2 over 6, and you have to convert that into a, let's just say into a percent, you're just going to divide. You're just going to go 2 divided by 6 in your calculator. And you should actually get something that repeats. It should be 0.33333, something like that. All right. All right, now just simply convert it into a percent. So you move it over twice, add your decimal, add a percent sign. You have just converted that fraction into a percent. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about the opposite way. So what happens when we need a decimal or a percentage and we need to turn that into a fraction? So what happens then is, let's say we have a decimal. Let's say we have 0.42. No, let's not do that. Let's say we have, it's too easy. No, we'll just say 0.42 for now. Let's say we have 0.42, and we need to turn that into a fraction. You're always going to look at the last digit's place value, okay? And the last digit's place value is going to go on the bottom as the denominator. So this is the hundredths place, so we're going to put hundredths. That's with the TH. And then we're just going to simply put 42 over 100 and reduce it. So how can we reduce? They're both even. We can divide by 2. Your answer is going to be 21 over 50. And how I got 21 over 50 was I just divided 42 by 2. That's 21. 100 divided by 2 is 50. We can't reduce it further, so that's our answer. And that's 21 over 50, in case you can't see it. So yeah, basically that's all there is to it. Now, if you wanted to convert a percent to a fraction, regular percents, it's simply just going to be over 100 always, because percents are always out of 100. But if you see decimal points and you see it's, like 42.13%, just add an additional 0 for every number that goes past the decimal point. So if you have, 41.2%, just like that. Okay, so it's over 100, and then every point, so there's one number past the decimal, right? So you're just going to add an extra 0, so that's going to be over 1,000. So it's going to be 412 over 1,000, and then you can reduce it from there. Usually on the GED you won't come across that, or you'll be able to use a calculator on it, which will make it a lot easier. So you really don't have to worry about that too much, but that is something that you have to you had to do on the test. Okay, so that's basically it. And the key to conversions is really just to know how to do each different one, because there's a lot of them. So it might take some time, but just practice. I have several worksheets on my website. Just go through, practice them, and then, try to get them sorted out from each other. So, I know it's sometimes confusing, like, I know how to do it, but I don't know what set of rules to use, sometimes that happens. That's why you kind of have to sort it out and just kind of memorize each section. Work on one section at a time and really focus on that and get it down to where you can do it. Then do the next one. And then once you're done with that, put them all together in a worksheet and then try to do them all kind of like one by one. Okay. All right. So that's it for Unit 4, the Unit 4 review. Now, tomorrow I'll be coming out with a kind of a how-to on how to do the practice final and the final at home. I'll also be sending you guys an email over the weekend about the test and the final. Okay, so the practice final and the final are going to be next week. Be sure to look in your emails for that, because you need to get the final and the practice final completed to be able to pass the class. Okay, so the practice final I want you to take first, and I want you just to take that for you. Okay, so you don't have to take pictures of it and send it back or do whatever like that. Just go ahead and complete it. find out what you got wrong on it. So grade it. I will provide the answer sheets. So grade it. You can ask me questions on it, whatever you guys want, and then you'll take the actual final as well. Anytime next week. Okay. I do need those finals completed though as soon as possible. So, 3 weeks from now, I'm not going to be answering emails anymore. All right. So just be sure you guys are aware that I'll only really be answering emails for the next week and a half. Okay. So at the end of next week, maybe a couple more days after, that's it. Okay. So make sure you guys have that done. So I'll be able to put your names in that you completed it. And when you guys come back in the fall, I will be able to give you guys a certificate saying that you completed the class. Okay. So make sure you guys do that. Yeah, and just look in your emails for it. And then, of course, like I said, if you have questions on anything else, just let me know. Okay, so that's it for this video. I'm signing off for now. I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day and have a great weekend. Study hard. Okay.